are going to be conjugating. No? You don't know what that means? It's okay. Conjugation is something that you already do in English. And today, we're going to start learning how to do it in Spanish. Don't worry, I gotcha. Welcome to Teacher Catalina, my channel, where you learn Spanish with a native speaker, a certified Spanish teacher with more than 16 years of teaching experience. By the way, did you know that you can find all sorts of Spanish videos here in my channel? Make sure you check them out. So as I told you at the beginning, it's time to get our conjugation on. In order to do that, we are going to learn the verb ser. Ser. Ser means to be. So basically, what you're going to learn to say today is things such as I am, you are, he is, she is, we are, they are, and all those kind of conjugations. Got it? Okay, so let's get started. In order for us to conjugate, we have to bring back those subject pronouns that we learned during our last lesson together. And if you have not seen that video, definitely make sure you check it out because you have to know the subject pronouns in order to conjugate. So now that we have our subject pronouns here, let's talk about what is conjugation. What does it mean to conjugate a verb? That's such a confusing word that I'm sure you may or may not know. However, I want to make sure that you understand it. All it means is making sure that we change this verb to match the person that is performing the action. You do this in English all of the time. You say, I am, but you say, you are. Those are conjugations. You do it, which is how I know you knew how to conjugate. Now, we're just gonna do it in Spanish. Remember during our last lesson that I told you that it was important to learn the subject pronouns in this specific order? Here's why. Because basically, all of the subject pronouns, in the way that they are going to have their specific conjugation for any verb that we work on. So, for example, él, ella, and usted are going to share the same conjugation. That's why we put those subject pronouns in there together in the same line. Is it starting to make sense? Good, excellent. So now that we have all of our subject pronouns there, all we have to do is come up with the conjugations of the verb ser. So we're going to learn to say am, are, is, and those kinds of things. So let's start with the first one, yo, which means I. The conjugation for ser would be soy. Soy. So now I could say yo soy. Yo soy. I am. Now that we have yo, I, out of the way, we have to move on to our next subject pronoun, which is you. Tú. Tú. The conjugation for ser in the tú form is eres. Eres. So the way that you say you are would be tú eres. Tú eres. So now we have yo soy and tú eres. Yo soy, I am, tú eres, you are. Remember how I told you that él, ella, and usted are going to share the same conjugation? This is where we're going to take a look at that. Now remember, él, he, ella, she, and usted is you formal. So, although we're talking about a he, a she, and a you formal, in Spanish, they are going to share the same exact conjugation. And that is going to be es. Es. So I would say, él es. He is. Ella es. She is. And usted es. You formal are. That es, in this case, is going to be used for all those three subject pronouns. Él, ella, and usted. So now we know the singular conjugations of the verb ser because so far we've talked about one person performing the action. I am, you are, he is, she is, and you formal are. So now it's time that we focus on our plural forms when more than one person is performing the action. If you remember from our previous lesson, nosotros can have a change in gender. So we could say nosotros if it's a we, a group of just guys, or a mixed group. And we would say nosotras if it's a group of we. Basically, we're saying we, and we are all girls. So make sure that you remember that because that's still something that you have to practice. Now, and I need your attention here. When it comes to the conjugations of the verbs, they don't have gender. The gender is only applicable to the subject pronoun, but not the verb. What does that mean? That if we want to say we are, we're going to say somos. That's the conjugation. Whether we say nosotros somos or nosotras somos. Somos does not change. What will change is whether we say nosotros or nosotras. But again, somos remains. Got it? Muy bien. All right. Vosotros and vosotras, which is you guys in Spain, also has gender in the subject pronoun. But just like I told you, verbs don't have gender. So the conjugation for vosotros and vosotras is going to be sois. Sois. Vosotros sois and vosotras sois. Before we get into our last conjugation of the verb ser, we have to remember that ellos, ellas, and ustedes are going to share the same conjugation, the same way that it happened with él, ella, and usted. So make sure that you remember the conjugation that we're about to see is used for all ellos, ellas, and ustedes. So the conjugation for those subject pronouns is going to be son. Son. Ellos son, they are. Ellas son, they are. And ustedes, you guys, are. You did it! Congratulations! You conjugated your first verb all in Spanish. Now, you should be able to say I am, you are, he is, she is, you formal, we are, you guys are in Spain, and they are, and you guys are in Latin America. That's a huge accomplishment. So let's make sure that we review one more time. The way that I would say I am would be yo soy. Yo soy. And by the way, you can follow along on the board. Tú eres would be you are. Tú eres. Él es, he is. Ella es, she is. And usted es, you formal. Remember, él, ella, and usted will share the same conjugation. Nosotros and nosotras somos. There is no change in the gender of the conjugation. You only change the gender on the subject pronoun depending on who is in that group. Vosotros and vosotras sois. And again, sois applies to both vosotros and vosotras. And lastly, ellos, ellas, and ustedes share the same conjugation, which would be son. Ellos son, they are. Ellas son, they are. And ustedes son, you guys are. So now that we got all of those conjugations out of the way, I want to bring something up to your attention that some of you probably already figured it out. And I want to make sure that you kind of start seeing things for what they are. These subject pronouns here are super important and we need to know them. But think in English for a second. You may say, he is tall, but you may say, Bob is tall. Did you see how we changed that subject pronoun from he to Bob? We need to be able to do the same thing in Spanish. And I know you know how to do it. It's just going to take a little bit of training so that your brain can see those changes. Let's start right now. Let's start simple with that example that I just gave you. If we're talking about Bob, we need to know that Bob is a he. Therefore, Bob is an él. Do you see it on our board? Él. Él means he. He would be representing Bob. That is important. You may see a sentence where you may see Bob is tall. you need to know that you need to be able to replace Bob with an A. Now, what if you see the name Ana? What would you replace Ana with? Take a look at our board. Excellent, that would be ella. So the sentence could say, ella is, she is, or it may say, Ana is. It's basically the same thing. You need to be able to interchange that subject pronoun for the name of a person. Now, let's focus on this ones right here at the bottom, the plural forms. Here's what I want you to think, and I want you to stop and think in English. I could say, we are short, or I could say, Pedro and I are short. Would you agree that saying we is the same as saying Pedro and I? We're still talking about we. That is something that you have to remember. So an easy way to remember would be anybody else plus I equals a we. How do we see that in Spanish? Anybody else, y. By the way, the word y means and. So anybody else, y, yo, which is I, that's going to equal a nosotros. And a nosotros is we. So I may say, we are short, or I may say, Pedro and I are short. In that case, I could say, nosotros somos bajos, and bajos means short. Or I could say, Pedro y yo somos bajos. Either way would work, but you should be able to see that nosotros can be replaced with Pedro and I. Again, anybody else plus I equals we. Anybody else, y, yo equals nosotros. And lastly, the same thing happens when you're talking about ustedes, you guys. I may be able to say, you guys are tall, or I may say, Pedro, Pepe, Ana, and you are tall. It's the same thing. You should be able to replace those names. So I could say, ustedes son altos. Altos means tall. Or I could say, Pedro, Pepe, y tú son altos. Do you see how we did that? Excellent. Now don't worry if this seems a little bit too complicated right now. I promise that with practice, this is going to become second nature. You're going to be perfectly fine. All right, let's do a little tiny bit of practice to make sure that you got this. ¿Listos? Ready? Okay, so I am going to leave our board here with the subject pronouns and the conjugations of the verb ser, since I know you just learned this, but I am going to give you a subject pronoun and I want you to come up with the correct conjugation of ser so that you can start practicing and seeing this in action. ¿Listos? Vamos. Here's the subject pronoun. Tú. Tú. What is the correct conjugation of ser? Basically, how would you say you are? Fantastic. Tú eres. Tú eres. Here's another subject pronoun. Nosotras. Nosotras. What is the correct conjugation of the verb ser? How do you say we are? Very good. Nosotras somos. Nosotras somos. What if I give you this name? What if I said Mario and I ask you to conjugate the verb ser? Basically, I want you to say Mario is. Yes, good. You change Mario into a he, which is an él, and you found the conjugation es. Mario es. Mario es. One last one. What if I said Patricia y yo? Patricia y yo. How would you conjugate the verb ser in order to say Patricia and I are? This one could be a little tricky, so I'll give you a little extra time. Good. Patricia and I equals a nosotros. So the correct conjugation would be somos. Patricia y yo. Remember, y means and. Patricia y yo somos. We are. Fantastic, guys. You did fabulous. I hope that you are as proud of yourself as I am of you. You did great. You conjugated your very first verb all in Spanish. Don't get antsy. We are building little by little things so that you can put together a sentence pretty quickly. So far, we have a subject pronoun or a subject, and we have a verb. Pretty soon, we're going to add something to that sentence so that we have a complete sentence, all in Spanish. Don't forget that you can check out my channel for more videos and to continue learning Spanish. I love to continue learning and teaching you, so I would like to invite you to click that subscribe button so that you and I can continue working together. While you're at it, hit that notification bell so that you are told when we have a new video, and of course, give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate that you joined me for this lesson, and I cannot wait to see you again next time. Adios!